Thank you, Chairman Meeks and Ranking Member McCall, and I want to thank our witnesses. Ambassador Brigady, it's great to have another Tennessean here with us. I believe the Communist Party is probably the greatest threat facing the free world. You know, even the liberal Human Rights Watch agrees that no other government undermines international human rights standards and institutions more than China. Their 2020 World Report is pretty convincing, and here's a quote from it. If not challenged, Beijing's actions portend a dystopian future in which no one is beyond the reach of Chinese censors and an international human rights system so weakened that it no longer serves as a check on government repression, end quote. Under President Xi Jinping, the CCP has escalated its assaults on democracy. They punish any criticism by their citizens. They intimidate, prosecute human rights activists, destroy churches, and jail religious leaders that aren't necessarily party approved. And of course, they continue to imprison the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang concentration camps. I mean, it's not some George Orwell novel. It's modern day China. The CCP has also silenced COVID-19 whistleblowers, hid vital information during the pandemic. Now we've got 2.5 million deaths worldwide. As the leader of the free world, I think the United States must respond forcefully for freedom. We got to fight for human rights within China, and we must do everything that we can to combat the CCP's rising influence beyond its borders and convince our allies to diminish dependency on this hostile regime. As ranking member of the Western Hemisphere Subcommittee, I'm disturbed by human rights abuses also in countries like Cuba and Venezuela. The list of human rights violations by Cuba's communist regime is extensive and includes suppression, torture, without due process, of course, or adherence to any rule of law. Further, political dissidents are held in notoriously atrocious prison conditions, and the Cuban dictatorship is a history of exporting its oppressive system and undermining the region's democracies. And that's why I'm leaving a letter to President Biden urging him to maintain the previous administration's policies and not revert to the failed appeasement policies of the past. I urge my colleagues on this committee to join me in this letter. The last administration also took numerous steps to support the freedom of the Venezuelan people, such as tough sanctions on companies transacting with the Venezuelan state oil company, the official recognition of President Guaido, the revocation of visas for Maduro officials, and the indictment of Maduro and his top officials for narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, and other crimes. These policies also need to be maintained and strengthened. I do have a few questions, though, in the little bit of time I have left. In 2008, if you exclude Mexico, China surpassed the United States as the largest trading partner in Latin America. My question is, how, I guess really two-part, how can the United States offer an alternative to China's growing influence in the Western Hemisphere, and how can we help convince our allies to choose us over China? And I'll take the answer from anyone who wants to comment.